On May 5th, 1543, 16-year-old Elizabeth of Austria, a Habsburg Princess, entered Krakow to wed Sigismund II Augustus, King of Poland. What was meant to seal a grand political alliance soon unravelled into one of Europe's most tragic royal marriages, a tale of illness, isolation, and a young queen slowly undone by epilepsy and fate. Elizabeth of Austria of the House of Habsburg was born on the 9th of July 1526 in the city of Linz in Upper Austria. She was the first child of the marriage of Ferdinand I, Archduke of Austria, and Anna of Bohemia and Hungary. They had been married 5 years earlier, and there had been growing concern at the Habsburg court that Anna might not be able to have children. This would have been a problematic issue for any royal and aristocratic line in early modern Europe, a time when marriages were all about producing male heirs and daughters to form marital alliances with. Fortunately for the lonely young princess, Elizabeth's arrival seemed to open the floodgates of life within the imperial nursery. Soon, the couple's once quiet corridors rang with the cries of newborn princes and princesses. Archduchess Anna would go on to bear 15 children, a staggering number, and miraculously, most of them survived well into adulthood, defying the deadly odds of 16th century childhood. Young Elizabeth spent her childhood within the grand yet shadowed halls of the Hofburg Palace in Innsbruck. Surrounded by scholars, courtiers, and quiet intensity of a devout household, she was raised in an atmosphere where learning was both a privilege and a duty. Her parents, Ferdinand and Anna, were passionate about knowledge, ensuring that Elizabeth and her siblings were rigorously educated in languages, the arts, and the Catholic faith. She mastered German, Italian, and French, though curiously not Polish, a language that would have proved far more useful in her tragic future. Her days were filled with prayer, lessons, and the melodies of harpsichords, while her father's fiery devotion left no room for hearsay. When he discovered that one of her tutors had joked about the cardinals, he swore he'd see anyone spreading Lutheran ideas executed. Elizabeth's world was one of books, music, and belief, a world built on the knowledge and discoveries of generations before her. And speaking of the power of knowledge, this brings me to today's sponsor, the book, the ultimate guide to rebuilding a civilization. If you haven't heard of it, it's a breathtaking illustrated encyclopedia that celebrates humanity's greatest inventions, discoveries, and ideas. I recently got my hands on this book, and honestly, it's fascinating. It's over 400 pages long, covers around 180 topics, all beautifully illustrated, and it really pulls you in. You just can't help but admire the level of detail and craftsmanship that went into it. I especially love the sections on armour, chainmail, and medieval weaponry, like the bow and crossbow, inventions that played a huge role in the wars, shaping Elizabeth's tragic world, as we will see. It's full of rare insights and inspiring stories, making it perfect for anyone who loves to learn, or a great gift this Christmas for the history lover, or just anyone really in your life. So, make sure to use my link below and use my promo code Forgotten10 to get your hands on the book. I'm sure you won't regret it. Around the year 1530 or 1531, when Elizabeth was a child of 4 or 5 years, the Austrian court painter Jakob Zeisenegger painted her portrait for the first time. The painting today shows a seemingly happy and healthy young girl with red cheeks and a gentle disposition. But all was not well with Elizabeth in her childhood years. As she grew up, she began to suffer from seizures, and these got worse and more frequent over time. The general understanding today is that Elizabeth was epileptic. This was a condition shrouded in mystery during the 16th century, a time when the medical revolution was only just beginning. Even so, there was a growing awareness, and at least they recognized that it was a health condition. Well, in past times, epilepsy had been treated as an almost supernatural condition. Depending on the time and place, it could actually be viewed negatively or positively. For instance, in some cultures it was considered a divine curse. In others, those with epilepsy were believed to be in communion with God or the gods during their seizures. The lack of medical knowledge about epilepsy in 16th century Europe would cast a long and haunting shadow over Elizabeth's life. because even though some did recognize this as a health condition, no one truly understood what was happening to her. As we will see, when Elizabeth journeyed to Poland as a young bride, her condition began to spiral out of control. Whispers filled the royal courts. Some claimed she was being poisoned on the secret commands of her spiteful and controlling mother-in-law. Others thought it was the devil's hand. But the truth was far more tragic. There was no poison, no plot, only a young queen's body betraying her, as her epilepsy quietly, relentlessly worsened. Before we follow Elizabeth on her fateful journey to Poland, we must first turn back the clock to the year 1526, the very year of her birth. Less than 2 months after she entered the world, the thunder of war erupted at Mohacs, a quiet plain in Hungary near the Danube River. On August 29, 1526, the Battle of Mohacs would become one of the most decisive clashes in European history. After more than 2 centuries of relentless expansion across the Near East, through Turkey, the Levant, Egypt, and deep into the Balkans, the Ottoman Empire now turned its gaze towards the heart of Central Europe. Sultan Suleiman I led a large army into Hungary and met a considerably smaller force led by King Louis II of Hungary and a confederacy of allies amongst the voivodes and lords of places like Transylvania and Wallachia. The battle not only ended in Turkish victory and their further expansion northwards, King Louis II was also killed during it. His death set off a succession dispute that shaped Elizabeth's life. Growing up as a child in Linz and Vienna, she would have been entirely unaware that this fateful battle 7 weeks after she was born had determined the course her life would take. King Louis II of Hungary was just 20 years of age when he died, and he did not have an heir. With his passing, the direct line of Jagiellon kings, who had ruled Hungary since the death of King Matthias Corvinus in 1490, came to an end. Moreover, Louis II had also been king of Croatia and Bohemia. While some of the lands he had ruled in name were now occupied by the Ottoman Turks, and would remain so for centuries in some cases, the price for who would succeed him was considerable. 3 different crowns, those of Hungary, Bohemia, and Croatia. There were 2 strong claimants to the throne. Elizabeth's father was one of them. Ferdinand's wife, Elizabeth's mother, was called Anna of Bohemia and Hungary for a reason. She was the sister of the now dead King Louis II, and the daughter of Vladislaus II, who had ruled Hungary, Bohemia, and Croatia down to his death in 1516. Through Anna, Ferdinand's children, including the infant Elizabeth, were the blood heirs of the Jagiellon dynasty, a living continuation of that royal line. His claim was not through conquest or politics alone, but through blood itself, a matrilineal bridge linking the Habsburgs to the vanquished crowns of Central Europe. The second claimant to the 3 thrones was Jan Zápolyai, the voivode of Transylvania. As a kind of Hungarian border lord, he enjoyed the support of the Hungarian aristocracy, and they nominated him to succeed Louis II. Furthermore, he was related to the Polish high aristocracy, a kingdom where a separate branch of the Jagiellon dynasty ruled over both the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. Although old King Sigismund I of Poland did not intend to pursue his own claim to the thrones of Hungary, Croatia, and Bohemia, he could not ignore the threat of Habsburg expansion. To check their growing power, he threw his support behind Jan Zápolyai, Ferdinand's rival. What followed was a brutal war of succession that raged in one form or another until Zápolyai's death in 1540, a struggle that would reshape the balance of power in Central Europe. This is where Elizabeth comes into the picture. To secure his claim, Ferdinand knew he had to strike a compromise with Poland. The Jagiellon dynasty had no desire to rule Hungary themselves, but they watched uneasily as the Habsburg Empire, which included the Spanish branch that stretched from Spain to the Americas, grew ever more powerful. Although Poland was a strong power in the 16th century, it did not want the Habsburgs extending their tentacles further eastwards into Bohemia and Hungary. At the very least, they wanted to neutralize them and make an alliance if Ferdinand was to secure Hungary and Bohemia. Ferdinand's diplomats soon opened talks with the Polish court, proposing a marriage alliance centered on young Elizabeth. The union would reassure the Jagiellons that once the Habsburgs secured the thrones of Bohemia and Hungary, they would not push further into Polish lands. The plan was simple. Elizabeth would marry the young King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania, Sigismund II Augustus. Though still a child, Sigismund had been made co-ruler alongside his aging father in 1529. Marriage negotiations began the following year in 1530, uniting Ferdinand's eldest daughter with the Polish crown. A formal treaty was signed that November, but Elizabeth was only 4 years old. The agreement stated that the wedding would wait until she turned 7, pending papal dispensation, necessary not only because of her age, but also because the pair were first cousins once removed. In time, the plan was revised. The marriage would be postponed until the early 1540s, when Elizabeth had reached a more suitable age. After years of delicate negotiations, Elizabeth finally departed Vienna in April 1543, at just 16 years old. 2 weeks later, she arrived in Krakow, where she met for the first time the man to whom she had been betrothed for 13 years, Sigismund II Augustus, now 22. That very day, inside the grandeur of Wawel Cathedral, the two were married. Elizabeth was now crowned Grand Duchess of Lithuania and Queen of Poland, sealing a long-awaited political alliance. For the next 2 weeks, Krakow erupted in celebration, festivals, feasts and fireworks, marking what many hoped would be the dawn of lasting peace between Poland and Austria. But beneath the splendour and song, a darker story was beginning, one that would soon turn this royal union into a tragedy. After the celebrations finished and reality kicked in, Elizabeth's life in Krakow turned into a nightmare. Her health had deteriorated during the trip to Poland, and she began experiencing a growing number of seizures. Her marital situation was even worse though. One of the reasons the marriage was delayed until 1543 was the fierce opposition of Sigismund's mother, Bona Sforza. She was an Italian noblewoman of the House of Sforza that had ruled the Duchy of Milan since the middle of the 15th century. Bona was a sharp and formidable presence at the Polish court, and was determined to block Habsburg expansion. Because of this, she had fought the match at every turn, and once Elizabeth finally arrived, she made her new daughter-in-law's life miserable. For instance, even after the wedding, she continued to challenge the terms of the marriage contract and dowry. Elizabeth, meanwhile, was a young and timid woman, and was daunted by her mother-in-law's attitude. But there were even deeper troubles behind the palace walls. Sigismund had little affection for his young bride, and he didn't even consider Elizabeth attractive, which is why he continued to keep several mistresses, even seeing them openly after their marriage. Far from home, Elizabeth was left isolated in a foreign court, accompanied only by a small retinue of Austrians. She was surrounded by a hostile mother-in-law, and a husband who viewed her as little more than a diplomatic pawn in the power games of Central Europe. So maybe it was inevitable that her health continued to go downhill. Courtiers reported that her seizures had grown more frequently, while darker rumours spread that old Queen Bona was poisoning her, though no evidence of poison was ever found. Her difficult circumstances drew sympathy from many, and the Polish nobility generally admired her grace and gentleness. Yet even their goodwill could not change her fate. Young Elizabeth seemed doomed from the moment she set foot in Poland. In the mid-1540s, a wave of plague swept across Eastern Europe, and the royal family took the only preventative measure available at the time. They fled from the city and went into the countryside. For a time, Sigismund headed off to Vilnius, the capital of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, with his favourite mistress, Barbara Radziwiłł. Meanwhile, Elizabeth toured Poland with her mother-in-law and father-in-law. Sigismund I, like others, was sympathetic towards Elizabeth's situation, but he was an aged and feeble man in his late 70s by that time, and could do little to help her. Eventually, Elizabeth was reunited with her husband in Vilnius, and he attempted to make it appear as though all was well in the new marriage for the sake of diplomatic niceties with the Habsburgs, even though this was not the case. In the city, things deteriorated sharply again. Elizabeth's sieges became more and more frequent, and were now having a serious impact on her overall health. By the early summer of 1545, it was clear that she was in a crisis. Desperate, her parents were written to in Austria, and their doctors hastened to her side, but it was far too late. On June 15, 1545 in Vilnius, the young queen succumbed to her illness at just 18, 3 weeks shy of her 19th birthday. The court was plunged into mourning, and she was laid to rest in Vilnius Cathedral 9 days later. Sigismund II Augustus would rule Poland until 1572, overseeing the formal union of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania into the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. After a brief second marriage to his mistress, he eventually married one of Elizabeth's younger sisters, Catherine of Austria, in 1553. In the end, though, none of Sigismund's 3 marriages produced children, and when he died in 1572, the Polish crown temporarily passed to the French royal house of Valois. In 1575, his sister Anna Jagiellon ascended to the throne as the last of her line, after which the House of Vasa took the Polish-Lithuanian crown. So, all the careful diplomatic scheming of the Polish crown had ultimately been for nothing. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video on Elizabeth of Austria. I hope you found it interesting. Also, again, a special thanks to today's sponsor, the book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding Civilization. Make sure to check that out using my links below. If you have any comments or suggestions, make sure to leave them down below, and I hope you guys are subscribed and have notifications turned on to get all my videos as soon as I upload them. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks.